Okay, so there's a couple of really interesting fears that people have sent regarding the quarterback. And Jeff sends this one in. My greatest Vikings fear is that Kirk Cousins plays just okay enough to get a playoff win and a contract extension. What do we think of that one?
That's deep.
I don't think that would do it. I don't think just getting into the playoffs and even one playoff win would convince the Vikings enough that they should extend the contract of Kirk Cousins, unless it was, let's say Kirk Cousins has a great year, but for whatever reason they still do what we just said. They make the playoffs, they get one win, and then they get knocked out, and the Vikings approach Kirk Cousins and they say, you know that $29 million that you're guaranteed in the third year of your contract? What if we knock that down to, say, $14 million so we get some free agents and extend you for 2 more years? That I could see happening.
Yeah.
Turn that mic on.
Yeah, you should probably talk it.
When did I turn it off? Are you messing with me, Manny?
It wasn't Manny, dude. You're just getting old.
Haunted?
You run
I did
on
nothing.
You run on ice.
I
and try
regret
to jump
nothing.
it.
I regret nothing.
Is this place haunted?
It's a good idea that
What's
it's turned
going
off.
on in here? Well, the good question is, though, what would it take if they were going to extend him? And I think probably an NFC championship, that he would at least have to match what Case Keenum did, getting them to the NFC championship game, in order for them to say after this year that he's going to get a contract extension. But I think from Kirk Cousins' history that if he goes into the last year of that deal without an extension, it's pretty likely he's just going to hit free agency to make as much money as he can. And I wouldn't be surprised if he does that anyway, because that's how he played the last one.
If Zimmer's going to be head coach here for the long term again, so he'll be back in 2020, and let's say he gets an extension, which would not be completely shocking. I don't think you have to be concerned about this, because Zim, the pout has been so magnificent since that contract was doled out. I think Zim's going to say, no, I can't do this again. No. And this is just a guess from the outside of seeing these two. I got to think the personalities don't match up great between the quarterback and the head coach.
But here's the thing.
So
whether
it would have to be magnificent.
Whether Zim likes it or not, or whether Cousins likes it or not, those two are kind of locked at the hip now, aren't they, in terms of...
But that's the point. I think Zimmer's doing everything he can to unlock it.
But I don't think he
can,
because I think this is and we talked about this before, even with the 1-year option exercised by the Vikings, this is a prove-it year for Mike Zimmer. So to keep his job, Mike Zimmer needs Kirk Cousins to succeed, and should Kirk Cousins succeed, there's a chance that he'll get an extension. So it's a catch-22 for Mike Zimmer. If he wants to keep his job, and if what Judd is saying about the bad mix of personalities between him and his starting quarterback, he needs that quarterback to be good enough to stick around.
Can I dig down a layer more, though, here?
Yeah.
Because here's what I think. What we're seeing and what we've seen since the day that Cousins signed that contract is I think the guys locked at the hip are Cousins and Spielman. It's being made pretty clear.
I think all 3 of them.
Well, I thought so too, but clearly one is trying to jettison himself from the belt or the chain here and say, I'm not guilty.
I got nothing to do with this.
And this whole thing strikes me as Mike saying, no, I told you from the day I got hired in 2014, I would win with defense. That's my philosophy.
But do you think Mike can survive? Do you think the Wilfs would jettison Kirk Cousins and Rick Spielman, bring in a new GM, and go get another quarterback for Mike Zimmer?
My gut says, having covered the Wilfs for a long time, that would not be beyond belief.
So Scott brings this up as his fear is that the Vikings will get to the end of this year with a very similar Kirk Cousins performance and not make any plans for the future beyond Cousins. Now, I think that they probably will plan to do that next year in the draft, that no matter how they do this year, that they'll be looking at those first round quarterbacks. But the problem is, if you go 9-7 and lose in the first round of the playoffs, it becomes very hard to look at quarterbacks in the first round, and round we go with this situation. That's why both Judd and I were talking about the Josh Rosen situation. It's like, well, I don't know who your future quarterback is going to be if it's not someone like Josh Rosen, someone doesn't fall into your lap, because otherwise you probably won't be able to use a first round pick on a quarterback, or it'll be the 18th or 20th pick again, or 23rd pick. And then you're probably asked to trade your entire draft up to get a quarterback if you want one of the best ones, or taking the third or fourth best quarterback off the board. So even the long term of this, I think Scott has a point that Vikings fans don't plan on sticking around and cheering for the team until the end of Kirk Cousins and then saying, okay, well, I guess we'll go to the Jaguars now or something like that. I think it would be a reasonable fear to wonder what is even down the road for this team. What is even next year and beyond for them at the coach, at the general manager, and then 2 years from now at the quarterback situation. I think that we're kind of on this very rocky ground with all of these things.